In this video, I got out of the hospital and EM sent me right back. Massive Karen's attack on my autistic brother ends up with me realizing my boyfriend is awesome. And customer thought we were moving her stuff too slow and wearing her tone, so we hurried up. I got out of the hospital and EM sent me right back. Cast: EM, entitled mother; dad, my father; NM, neighbor mom; me, your new stepdad. A week before my birthday, my dad's boss told him he was going to San Francisco for work stuff. We lived in Denver at the time, which meant my dad was going to miss my birthday. It was upsetting, but I understood, and he said we'd have a party once he got back. While he was gone, my brother and I were staying with EM. At the time, we knew she was a little entitled, but my dad trusted her to take care of us. On day 3 of my dad's trip, my brother and I were playing in their living room when EM offered us some granola bars as a snack. At the time, I was young and wasn't very cautious, so I didn't always read ingredients for the things I was eating. Unfortunately, there were cashews in the granola bar, so when I took the first bite, I started to feel it pretty quickly after. Within minutes, I was throwing up everywhere, in severe pain, and my throat was closing up. And as if it couldn't get any worse, that was when I realized I had forgotten my EpiPen. Then, the panic and closing airways triggered my asthma attack, and I also didn't have my inhaler. So at that point, CB calls an ambulance and I pass out on the floor. The paramedics were able to keep me from dying with the combination of anaphylactic shock and asthma attack, but I did end up slipping into a coma for 11 days. This meant I was in a coma on my birthday, but I guess that was probably pretty low on the list of concerns considering they weren't 100% sure I was going to make it out of the coma. So a week after my birthday, I finally wake up. At first, I was fairly calm about waking up in a hospital until I found out that I had been in a coma for 11 days, at which point I started panicking and almost gave myself another asthma attack. Anyway, they kept me there for a few days just to make sure I was okay and it was safe for me to go home. So, we finally get home, and as soon as I walk in, I see my brother, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, my 2 cousins, EM, and NM and her kids, who my brother and I are good friends with, as well as a big sign that reads, "Happy birthday and welcome back, the land of the living." They had planned a surprise birthday party for me once they found out I was out of the coma, so we went about doing birthday party things and hanging out. I got some questions from my brother and cousins about the coma, while NM bakes my cake. However, the only important thing that was happening at this time was the following conversation between EM and NM. NM, man, that must have been terrifying for him to go into that coma. I mean, imagine having to be that careful about everything you eat. EM, oh, don't tell me you buy all of that. NM, what? EM, he was clearly faking it to get attention. Everyone knows that asthma and allergies aren't real. NM, both of those are very real and very serious problems. EM, whatever, you sheeple. You're just too stupid to see through the government's lies. Then EM just wandered off. I feel it's important to note that at this time, the birthday cake had just been put in the oven and this conversation happened in the living room, which did not have a line of sight into the kitchen. After a while, the cake finally finished baking and we all congregated in the dining room to eat it. So everyone sang happy birthday to me and my aunt cut the cake and gave everyone a slice. I was about to take the first bite when the luckiest thing that could have happened. I dropped my fork on the floor. At this point, I, wanting to act all grown up and solve my own problems, decided I'd go into the kitchen and clean the fork myself. Right as I finish and start walking back out to the dining room, when I hear my dad yell, "What the fuck did you just say?" I run out to see what's going on and I see my dad standing up staring daggers at EM while she cowered in fear of him. EM, whimpering, it was for his own good. It turned out that after the conversation between EM and NM, EM had snuck into the kitchen and poured most of a bag of mixed nuts that she had brought with her into the cake. Dad slams his hand on the table. How the fuck is that for his own good? EM starts to gain some confidence as she doesn't see a problem with what's happening. Well, if he had eaten the cake without knowing they were there, he wouldn't have been able to fake a reaction because he wouldn't have known that there was anything in the cake to react to. Dad, what the actual fuck is wrong with you? EM, I was trying to prove to you, sheeple, that Dad, I knew inviting you here was a mistake. I figured it was good for the boys to have you in their lives, but you've made it abundantly clear that it is not. EM, so what are you saying? Dad, what I'm saying, get the fuck out of my house and stay the fuck away from my kids. EM, you can't do that. They're my kids too. That's right, everyone. EM was my actual mom. Dad, not after what you just pulled there, not. And if you want to take this to court, I'll make sure that you aren't even allowed in the same state as them. Now get the fuck out of my house before I call the cops. EM, you just wait until my father hears about this. Her dad is very wealthy, so I think she was expecting him to help her get custody of my brother and me. We found out later that not only did her boyfriend break up with her and kick her out of his house, but when her dad found out about what she did, he refused to let her live with him. Stopped giving her money and said that if she took my dad to court, he would support my dad. As you can expect, she never took us to court. And as for the rest of the party, we just bought a new cake because nobody wanted to take the time to bake another one. We also decided to just throw out the pan we had used for the first one because she had put so many nuts in it that we were worried about it contaminating anything we put in it after that. Massive Karen's attack on my autistic brother ends up with me realizing my boyfriend is awesome. Meet the cast. Me, 25-year-old female, tiny Vietnamese girl living in the US since 9 years old, with a usually shy yet cheerful personality who loves to read and crazy for chocolate. Brother, 20-year-old male, short, chubby Vietnamese guy with some mental issues but extremely intelligent and truly the sweetest boy ever. He loves dinosaurs and idolizes my boyfriend. Let's call him B. Boyfriend, 29, male, tall and muscular, long-haired and beardy Brazilian guy. Despite his permanent mean look, he's extremely kind, intelligent, engineer, and lovely. Loves my family as his own. Keep this last bit in mind, it's important. Let's call him BF. Karen, massive lump of lard and entitlement. If you ever saw an obese Karen, you saw this one. Weird clothes, ugly bag, that haircut, huge sunglasses, and a voice which makes your ears bleed. Karen Spawn, probably a 8-year-old male, overweight brat, entitled as his mother, not gonna say much more, don't want to trash talk a kid. This story takes place during 2018's December, a week before Christmas. My boyfriend and I were visiting my parents for the holidays and we wanted to go shopping for gifts in a shopping mall nearby. We decided to take my brother as well since he was bored at home and I wanted to spend more time with him. At the shopping mall, I decided to put my grand plan in motion. My boyfriend always surprises me on Christmas, but it would be my turn that year. I usually never ask him for anything, but this time I made the cutest face and voice I could. Me. Baby, can you get me a chocolate milkshake, please? I'll wait in this bookstore here with B. Boyfriend, okay, be right back. Kiss my head. Yeah, my head. It's faster because he's much taller than me. I picked this bookstore for 3 reasons. His gift would be a book, as he loves reading just as much as I do. It was far away from McDonald's where he would get a milkshake, and, more importantly, they had books with dinosaurs models. My boyfriend noticed it, and it became the perfect alibi since my brother was around. Now is when things started to go wrong. I took my brother to the place where they kept the dinosaurs' books, way in the back, and told him to pick a book and wait there. He picked even before I could stop talking. I left him there because the library was big, and I had just a few minutes to buy my boyfriend's gift and hide it in my bag before he could see. I was maybe 10 minutes into my frenzied search for a book when I heard some loud voices from where I left my brother. There I saw the monstrous Karen yelling and trying to wrestle the book my brother picked from him while her spawn cheered from the sides and a couple of workers, 2 teenager girls, stood there stunned, not knowing what to do. I rushed there and yelled, Me, what are you doing? Karen, this freak don't want to give my baby the book, so I'm taking it. Karen Spawn, Mommy, get me the T-Rex! I grabbed her fat arm, which was easily 5 times thicker than mine, and tried to pull her off him. Me, leave him alone. He picked it up first. Karen, stop lying and don't touch me, bitch. Push me. Now, you retarded son of a bitch, give me this book. Now. She shoved me and I landed on my butt some 4 feet away from her, stunned. This is when she started to slap my brother really hard. We could hear the smacks. On her 4th slap though, my boyfriend came out of nowhere, tore that mastodon from my brother while pushing her and putting himself between my brother and her, who also fell on her butt. Now, I would like to say he is usually very calm, very quiet, a guy of very few words, and I only saw him angry once, but even then he never raised his voice. This time was different. His face was pure murderous anger, and he literally roared at the woman, boyfriend, Don't you dare hurt my brother! I was shocked to see him like that, but Karen went from red to white and her kid went on mute. Another employee came dragging a security officer. Karen screamed she was assaulted. My boyfriend, again calm as if nothing happened but angry as hell, explained his side of the story. I explained what happened. The teenager employees did the same. Cameras were checked and the bruises on my poor brother were looked at. The police were called and everything got reviewed. Turns out this Karen already had her problems with the law, and the only reason why we didn't press charges is because we just wanted to finish shopping. She was arrested anyway, so why bother? In the end, my boyfriend had to go buy another milkshake for me since he dropped it when he rushed to aid my brother. I used the time to buy his book and my brother's with a huge discount. Later, when we were calmer, I started to analyze the whole situation and what he did. He looked scary, but the way he did that was so cool and hot. He called my brother his brother and protected him so ferociously. It was like watching a lion protecting his band. My parents were so grateful they almost cried. If they liked him before, now they loved him to the point of calling him son. And my brother started to get along with him even better than before. You guys should see them playing Street Fighter together. It's so wholesome and funny. And me, well, let me say one thing. That night I didn't let him sleep at all and my hips were really sore the next morning. More than a fall could explain. We're getting married as soon as this whole COVID thing is over. Oh yeah, he got surprised with the book. Mission accomplished. Customer thought we were moving her stuff too slow and wearing her tone, so we hurried up. So I work as a mover for a very small moving company. My boss, let's call him Mike, is a really nice guy. It's really just a two-man operation, with me working as a subcontractor under him with a few regular guys we call in for bigger moves. It's really physically demanding work sometimes, but typically our customers are super nice and the pay is pretty good. Most people are just happy to have someone else to lift their heavy stuff and get it into a truck. And we're always super careful to not cause any damage to the buildings we're moving in and out of or the items we're moving, which most people appreciate. Not this lady. Let's call her Darcy. So Darcy booked a move with Mike and told him she had a small storage unit she wanted us to load up with a 20-foot truck. We said no problem. As the date of her move approached, though, so did a huge snowstorm. Days before her move, the news started reporting that the weather was expected to take a severe turn for the worst. Not uncommon for the time of the year in our state, but also something not to be trifled with. We called Darcy a couple of days before the move to see about rescheduling to avoid the storm, and she said she absolutely had to move that day. No other days would work. A lot of probably much smarter movers would have canceled, but after talking, Mike and I thought it was no big deal. We move in the snow all the time. Just meant we would have to dress appropriately and be extra careful not to injure ourselves or damage any property. Cut to the day of the move. We get to Darcy's storage unit, expecting a 10 by 10 by 15 standard storage unit full of your usual stuff based on what she'd indicated on the phone, and loaded into a 20-foot truck. That's a pretty easy job to get done in the 2 hours that she'd already paid for. As we pulled up, the snow was already coming down pretty heavily, and the first thing that made us nervous was the truck. Instead of a 20-foot truck, there was a huge 26-foot truck. Darcy greeted us by the truck and showed us the storage unit. Darcy: okay, so this is our unit. We shut down our businesses and I'm moving it out of town to pursue other opportunities. And I need all of this loaded up in 2 hours. The last movers I had got it unloaded in about that long. Mike said something about the truck being bigger than she told us. Darcy: yeah, it's the biggest one U-Haul had. Last time we used another company and it was much bigger. I'm worried about getting it all, but you guys will have to figure it out. I need all of it. This was a huge storage unit, like the kind you'd store a few cars or some farm equipment in. When we opened it up, it was filled with what appeared to be the contents of a couple of pretty decently sized businesses. A dozen of those huge floor-to-ceiling filing cabinets, several desks, office chairs, some really huge glass tables, and all of it was incredibly heavy. Now, our company's safety guidelines for weight limits are 100 pounds per person lifting an item, but there's no real practical way to enforce that in the field, so we usually wind up using our best judgment, even if the item is over that limit. Nearly everything there was over limit, but we had our equipment and we were pretty confident we could handle everything, weight-wise. Mike and I are both pretty strong, but in my estimation, this was definitely going to take a bit longer than 2 hours. Mike told her that we would do our absolute absolute best. To be fair, he should have leveled with her then and there that it would take a little bit more time, but he probably wanted to see if we could just get it busted out as quick as possible and see where we were at before getting the customer needlessly worried. Darcy sat in her truck nearly the whole time we were working, so she could keep warm. Perfectly understandable since it was -2 Fahrenheit outside and the snow was coming down pretty hard, though she'd occasionally roll down her window to offer up critiques, mostly about how much time we were taking going up and down the metal ramp of the truck, which was now covered in ice and snow. About an hour and some change into the move, Darcy gets out of her truck and starts chatting with Mike about her previous movers and how they did cause some damage to her stuff, but they were so fast. It was weird. She went back and forth between complaining about them and praising them for their speed. And she kept referring to them as the professional moving service I hired, which really bugged me because the way she said it seemed to be implying that because we weren't a big national company like Mayflower, then somehow Mike and I weren't professional movers, despite the fact that this is literally our full-time jobs. Now, we're far enough into this move that we could tell this was going to run long. Mike decides it's a good idea to let her know that it's probably going to take a half hour or so longer than expected, which was still a feat considering how much there was to move and how well packed this truck was. I pride myself on playing a mean game of truck Tetris. Darcy was not having this. She started to get upset and started saying how we were just trying to get more money out of her and we were dilly-dallying. Yes, those words actually left the mouth of a grown woman. Then she starts in on how the professional movers got the same stuff unloaded in 2 hours. It should take the same time to load it. Mike explains to her that unloading always takes less time than loading because you're moving it into a bigger space and you don't have to pack and pad the stuff to fit into a truck. I also mentioned that there's literally a blizzard coming down and we're only gonna go a little over. She gets quiet and seething. Mike can tell how angry she is and lets her know we won't charge her for any extra time since it's not her fault the weather's crappy. He also brings up that they damaged her stuff and we've done a pretty good job. Darcy, I don't care. You said 2 hours. I expect it done. Just get it done. I'm gonna leave you guys a terrible review. She stomps back to her truck without saying a word. I'm usually pretty chill, but I was already getting increasingly mad at this woman. Her yelling at my boss and calling us lazy when we were risking our health and safety to move her stuff in a blizzard was just too much for me. Mike thinks about this for a moment. I know customer reviews are super important to us as a small business. The booking site we use highlights the last handful of reviews, so a bad one takes forever to stop showing up is basically the first thing people see when they click on your page. So I'm expecting Mike to try and keep her happy, but instead, he just grins and turns to me. Mike, fuck it. You heard her. Cue malicious compliance. She wanted it all loaded in 2 hours? That's exactly what we do. The front half of her truck was loaded up neatly, with everything padded and stacked tightly floor to ceiling to keep it from moving on the road. I pride myself on my ability to load a truck properly and safely without wasting any space. The second half of the truck was the worst, jankiest truck I've ever loaded in my life. We're talking huge, heavy office furniture haphazardly stacked on top of each other at the weirdest angles. Heavy stuff on top of light stuff, anything to just get the storage unit empty and the truck door closed. We even stacked really heavy office chairs on top of glass tabletops. I just want to be clear, we've never intentionally damaged a customer's property, and we never would. We pride ourselves on our professionalism, courtesy, and specifically our ability to get your stuff where it's going safely. But the particular combination of unsafe conditions and this lady's outright disregard for our safety and feelings was just too much. And technically, we didn't damage anything. Nothing was broken when we closed the truck doors, but literally the first bump in the road or decently tight turn was definitely going to cause hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in damage. We closed the truck door and walked over to Darcy's truck and let her know. Mike went to her truck. He told her that we were done and that he wasn't going to charge her at all for the move. She insisted that she's not poor and she doesn't need charity. And Mike just said that it was clear that she wasn't happy and that he didn't need her $150. That's right, we charge $75 an hour. So the extra half hour we needed to do it right would have cost her a whopping $37. He canceled the job and refunded her what she'd already prepaid. As we drove away in Mike's car, I looked at him. Me. You realize that by the time she gets where she's going, she's looking at a lot of damaged furniture, right? She's gonna hit us with a bad review and maybe even try to sue. Mike: she was worried about paying an extra $37. I doubt she'll risk more money on hiring a lawyer, and besides, you can't even leave a review on the site if the job gets canceled. We just gave her exactly what she wanted, and besides, it's worth losing out on the money I would have made just to see her face when I said I didn't need her $150. When he dropped me off, he still paid me for my time because fuck that lady. My boss, Mike, is a really nice guy.